We're here for the we're here for the Cal APA Winter Coordinator meeting, just to make sure you're in the right place. We did divide up our meetings this year, so some of you may have responsibilities for Cal TPA, and so you might have been here yesterday. And then if you have an Ed Sped program, you might be here tomorrow. But today we are talking about the Cal APA. All right, Julie, you want to bring up the slides?
You got it. I might be screen sharing the wrong screen. Hold on. Take two. 1 second. And I'm still screen sharing the wrong. Okay. Hmm.
Oh no.
Give me a second. I'm having a glitch.
Okay. Well,
10 minutes.
we will be getting to this part of the presentation, but I did want to introduce our newest consultant. She just joined the commission this January. Patricia, you want to say hello and maybe give a little bit of your background?
Hi, everyone. I do see a couple of familiar faces, so that's great to see. My name is Patricia Lane, and like Marissa said, I just joined the commission. My background is in K-12 as a teacher on special assignment, school administrator, and then I also worked at a couple of CSUs. So it's great to see everyone, and it's great to be here with the commission.
All right. Thank you. All right. So again, we're here for the Cal APA Winter Coordinator meeting, and we can go to the next slide. As we said before, our office here at the Commission, our department manages the Cal TPA and the Cal APA, and we have introduced some new versions of the Cal TPA and Education Specialists and PK3. And so these are all the different performance assessments that we manage. Go ahead and go to the next slide. All right, so today we are going to be doing some introductions and taking attendance. We'll have some norms and outcomes. We'll be sharing with you the Google resource materials, and we will be putting the slide deck from today in the folder after today's presentation. So you should be able to get that. And as you see, we are recording, so we will be able to get the recording out to you. So that way you may have that for your records, slash if anybody else needs this information and was not able to be here today. We have a year-to-date data review, so we'll be looking at data from about August to about mid-December. And an analysis. We'll have a little conversation about some of the data. You may have seen and may have had trouble with the links for the Cal APA version 9 survey that was put out in the EQ Weekly. We have fixed that issue. Our IT department has locked down so many of it's to the point where we're having issues sharing items with each other within the same institution. So we had to go through some permissions to be able to get that survey out. Well, we do have a link for that. And we are absolutely looking for feedback as we are making those version 9 revisions. So if there's anything that you'd like us to hear, please make sure that you complete that survey. I believe the last day for responses is going to be February 6th. We will also have some announcements and save the dates. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide.
All right, so looking at our support team, and once again, good afternoon to everyone. Our support team is a director of our Division of Research, Data, and Assessment, and that's Dr. Juliet Wallleitner. And then we have Julie Holmes on the call, who's a consultant with the Performance Assessment team. And then myself, Patricia Lane, and once again, I'm new to the commission as well, so good to see everyone. And then we have Dr. Marissa Luna Lopez. And then from the evaluation systems Pearson side, we have Dr. Reginald Nichols, who's the director of the assessment programs, and you'll be hearing from him today. And then Dr. Xavier Webb, he's the senior area director. And so right now we want to just pause for a moment and have you sign in as you already are doing in the chat, your name, your position, and your institution. And we know that will take some time, so we'll gladly read through that as we continue on. And so looking at today's norms, we ask that you please keep your microphone muted unless you're speaking, and to try to keep your camera on. However, we know sometimes it's not the most convenient time or place for that, and so we're very understanding of that. Please use the chat feature to post any questions that are related to the current topic, and we'll be monitoring that and responding to those queries. Um, please, fo please focus your questions on generic general focus, not program specific. We'll have time at the end for questions of that nature if you'd like to stay on. We ask that you try to avoid multitasking. We know that that can be quite difficult because we have so many things and might have multiple tabs open. But we'd love for you to be able to hear all the information and the participants. And we also ask that you honor the time for all participants by moderating your participation and providing space for others to also ask questions. All right,
All
I'll pass
right.
it over to Marissa.
Sure. So our meeting outcomes today are to build and maintain our Cal APA learning community and partnerships. It's great to see you all. I hope you all had a wonderful winter break, holiday season, and I hope you're all staying warm. It's kind of chilly where I'm at and been very, very foggy, but for some of you, it's been like 80 degrees and nice and toasty and lovely. So, but it's always wonderful to be in community with you all. Want to analyze some version 8 results to date to improve program design and think about Cal APA implementation. So as we continue to develop this performance assessment and go along the journey coming into year 9, we want to take a look at spaces where candidates are doing really well and spaces where they may need additional support areas for growth and be able to move candidates through. That's leading into that survey for feedback about version 8 and some suggestions and updates for version 9. And we want to look ahead to some coming events that are going to be impacting CalAPA and the performance assessment in general. And we also recognize that there are a lot of things on the horizon, events on the horizon for the administrative credential, and that's with CalAPA, but it's also separate from CalAPA. Typically, updates to the administrative credential, folks that can be admitted to programs and different pathways. Those are absolutely important and typically would be managed by the SAWI and would happen first. And if you're not familiar with some of these different changes, PSD is now the Educator Quality Branch, and DeSawi was what was PSD. They would be managing a lot of the updates to the actual credential. And then once we have those standards, then Cal APA may be opened up and reevaluated and a work group reassembled and go through that process. But we're not I'm not necessarily knowing what's coming up, but that is on the horizon for the admin credential, not necessarily this upcoming year for Cal APA. Take a look. Okay, so we have today's materials. Within the Google folder, you should find a Cal APA program contact list up to date as of January 20th of 2026. Now, I recognize that Gay used to keep like a separate list of folks, and I also recognize why after managing and dealing with the ADS system. But unfortunately, we are not keeping a separate list anymore. It's all what's in the ADS system. And so if you are looking in that Google folder and you go to this spreadsheet and you're like, I should be on this list and I'm not, we will have a email address and a slide to fix this. The problem with the ADS is the only people that can manage this are ones that are designated from your institution. So if you email me directly and say, I'm the Cal APA coordinator, the person whose name's on the list has since retired, can you please update this? I can't. I can't go into your ADS and change anything The only person that can do that is the designated individual from the institution. And if sometimes there's no one on the document because no one even knows who's really in charge of it or who has the capacity to change any names or update contact information. And so maybe we can jump down, Julie or Patricia, onto the email address for the ADS folks and drop that in the chat. So if you know that you absolutely need to update that, it is coming up later, but we can put that email address in there so you can email them and find out information for your institution. But there is an ADS user guide and overview in there, and sometimes it's just as simple as being able to log in. But again, there's the challenge of knowing who sometimes. We also added in the results analyzer navigation guide. It's a PDF document to be able to support many of you as you are looking in results analyzer and having some of these data-based conversations and looking at candidates' performance. We will be having a results analyzer office hour coming up in February, and we want to make sure to let you all know about that. It's not going to be like a beginning results analyzer training because many of you have seen those before. It's going to be more of an office hour where you can come and ask questions. And Dr. Nichols here, you may want to put some contact information because the biggest thing for that is just knowing your login and how to get into Results Analyzer and making sure that's in place. So when you do come to that office hour, you would be able to answer, ask your questions about how to use Results Analyzer and how to get some data from that system. So that's coming up in February. We will be publishing that in the EQ Weekly and sending out another notification of when that's coming out. I believe it's like late February that we're planning to host that office hour time. I did put in the version 8 materials. They're just in a Google folder in there, as well as a link to the survey. And again, it was in the EQ, but many folks have been having a hard time logging in because of some of the share permissions, but those have been updated and you should have access to that survey. And again, we greatly appreciate your participation and feedback as we take a look at the CalAPA and how it needs to grow and shift and be more authentic to what administrators need in order to be prepared for their roles on day one. And again, the slide deck from today's presentation, we will be putting that in as a PDF after the meeting today. And we will be, as we are recording, we will be including a recording on our YouTube channel, or perhaps just in that folder. We'll have to figure that all out, but we are recording as well. All right, go to the next slide. And we're here at our data review. So Dr. Nichols, if you would like to unmute and say hello and take us through some of this wonderful data that we were all very pleased to see.
Well, thank you, Marissa. Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, everyone. We are excited that you are here, and we're excited to go through some data. We're going to take some time to go through some data and pause for a little bit so that we can have some conversations, or if you have questions, you can always put them in the chat and we'll be able to answer those questions in the chat also. You go to the next slide. Just to let you know, the scope of the data is from August 1st, 2025 through December 11th, 2025. We look at data in quarters or certain periods of time. And the last score report data that we looked at covered the beginning of the program year through December. And you'll see three sets of information per two sets of information per cycle. We have the number of submissions that were attempted and the number of submissions that were scored. You might ask, what's the difference between the attempted and the scored? as you know, if a candidate gets a condition code, they are not scored. So that means that it doesn't show up in your roster as a point or anything like that. If someone receives a condition code, their submission is not scored. So the not scored could include those that got condition codes and those who have, as we take all of our submissions through originality checks, those that might have been flagged for originality. When they're flagged for originality, we let the candidate know and we let you know that they're flagged for originality. But you can see in cycle one, we had 770 submissions received. 751 of those submissions were scored. In cycle two, we've had fewer submissions, 215 received and 170 scored. And in cycle three, we had 412 received. And of those 412, we had that number, the number scored, 382 scored. Next slide. This slide will tell you about the overall passage rates for first attempt. We are excited about that. Our first attempt pass rates are up. What that means is that a candidate, as they've taken each cycle, their first time taking that cycle, they are passing at these pass rates. So for cycle one, 98% passed the first time. Cycle two, 96% passed the first time. And for cycle three, 98% passed the first time. Of note, you'll see cycle two has been highlighted because that's been a challenging cycle for us over the years. And as we looked, all three cycles have done better first attempt. But cycle two is really done as we looked at last year. Last year, the pass rate for cycle two was 93%. But this year, this particular time period, cycle two, the pass rate is 96%. Yay. And thank you. It's because of everybody's hard work with cycle two, which has been a challenge. And also the good news is that 100% of the candidates, if they're taken the second time, are passing on the second attempt. So when they take their second attempt during this time period, if they took their second attempt, 100% passed. So that's great news. And congratulations to all of you for supporting the candidates as they go through this process. Next slide. This slide is showing the pass rates by ethnicity by cycle. This is a very important slide because we get information relative to how candidates by stated ethnicity are performing in the various cycles. As you can see, we had 757 in the first attempt at 98% of no, and 96% or 170 candidates second attempt that passed, and then 98% or 382 candidates in the first attempt for cycle three. Of note is, as we've been watching African American and Asian candidates first attempt, that has increased. Last year and in the years prior, African Americans and Asian candidates have had the lowest pass rates in their first attempt. Last year, African American and Asian candidates were scoring 94% on their first attempt. But as you can see here, that has increased. So we're very grateful for all your work for cycle one. You can see that African American Black candidates are 100%, for cycle two, 100%, and for cycle three, 97%, which is an increase. for African American Black candidates. And all the candidates are doing well across all the cycles. So that's great news. Slide. Next slide.
Oh.
So these next couple of slides, we're going to take some time to look at how the candidates are performing on their rubrics. So these are the average rubric score, or the mean rubric scores that these candidates that we've identified during this time period, how they're performing for each cycle and each rubric. We've divided the cycles into the various steps, and I want to take a look. I want you to take a look at how the candidates are performing and their average rubric score. We've highlighted the rubrics and the scores that are 3 and above. As you know, a 3 rubric level 3 is considered where we measure the essential question against rubric 3. And so that is the real benchmark for how we expect candidates to perform. So rubric 1.1, a rubric 1.4, a rubric 4, and rubric 6 are doing very well in the sense that they are 3.0 and above. Rubric 2, 1.2, and 1.8 in the investigate and the reflect, while they're not doing bad, they do show signs for improvement. And just to let you know that last year, when we looked at how rubrics were performing over the year, we were really concerned about rubric 7, which last year was a 2.4, and now it is a 2.7. So that shows us that there's a lot of great work being done by the candidates and through your support for that particular rubric over the years, especially over last year, to move from a 2.4 to a 2.7. And just to let you know, last year we looked at the rubrics 1, 4, and 6. Last year, they scored 2.9 on rubric 1, 4, and 6. And all 3 of those rubrics are doing well. The candidates are performing better on all 3 of those rubrics. Marissa, some thoughts and ideas, and we
Well,
can
yeah,
engage.
absolutely. And we have more data to support cycle one because many programs structure themselves to go through cycle one, then two, then three. I've seen some programs say they do cycle one first, then maybe three, then two, depending upon the way that you embed these. So that's why when we look at the data, we're going to see a lot more candidates having completed cycle one rather than two and three at this midpoint. So when we come back together in June, we'll be able to look at the whole year in review and be able to have some more good data. But overall, the passing standard for the cycle one is 15 points. And so out of 8 rubrics, the candidates are doing well. But to take a look specifically at what is being asked of candidates in rubric 2 and investigate, and then taking a look at what is being asked of them in their reflection. It's important to point this out. And as you're teaching these items to candidates, I would show them some of this data as well and say how people are doing across the state and on average, and how to help move them forward. But again, very pleased to see the results and how candidates are scoring on this rubric, and I'm sorry, for this cycle.
Right. And overall, Marissa, the cycles of the candidates performing well in the cycle as a whole, the mean cycle score last year was 21.3. In this section of this segment of the data, the cycle score is 22.5. So not only doing well as far as the rubric performance and the rubric scores, but overall for this cycle, they're doing well.
Mhm. Good to hear.
All right. Next slide. Let's take a look at cycle two. Cycle two, note the rubric 2.1, 2.2, doing very well. 2.5 is almost there, but we're close, right? The main point of emphasis as you work with candidates is we really need to ask some questions about rubrics 3 and 4. The scoring the lowest out of all of the rubrics in all 3 cycles. Rubrics 2.3 and 2.4 are scoring the lowest. Last year, rubric 7 was the low scorer. It was 2.1, but you can see it's moved up to 2.5. And last year, through all of last year, rubric 1 was the highest. It was 3.0. And you could see the movement of cycle 2, which I'm very happy with. The movement of cycle 2 is doing very well, except we just need to pay some attention to step 2 plan, rubrics 2.3 and 2.4. Marissa.
Taking a look, cycle two is a challenge for a lot of candidates to identify a problem of practice, an equity issue facing students in the educational context site that they're at, coming up with bringing a group of people together to come up with a plan to address that inequity and putting something into practice and then checking on it, right? And making sure that what they're doing is effective. And it's really, really challenging for me when I look at this cycle to see the number of submissions that are just simply not scored because they're incomplete. So many candidates, and it's I don't know what else to say is that they need to submit all the materials. Candidates will submit one agenda or 1 minute and they don't submit all of it, and so without a complete submission we can't get a complete picture of what the cycle looked like and be able to and to score it. But in reviewing this data here, that planning step, it's a challenge for candidates. And in looking at step 3, really engaging in that narrative analysis of really analyzing their facilitation moves, what they did and why. And we are hoping that by shifting around and adding some templates that were very general and generic, and I know that many of you have such better materials than we put in there, but they were really just a place for someone to start and also a placeholder for candidates to try to help them to ensure that they would submit all the materials along with their documents. And we also hoped that by allowing for video edits, that would help candidates to, because we've seen a significant decrease in staging and scripting for candidates. Many candidates are not feeling that press of time anymore to try to get certain things into certain spaces and certain just 5 minutes of time. And I'm happy to say that I haven't seen a single 5 minute meeting this whole academic year where I'm having to look at a 5 minute meeting where, okay, you're the timekeeper, that has gone completely away, and it's wonderful to see, because that has been the biggest thing, is just communicating to candidates. And it's such a powerful thing to lead a group of educators to address a problem of practice by working together and looking at data. And so as the candidates continue to work through this, and I am especially looking forward to reading some of your feedback on our survey when taking a look at this cycle, because it has been an interesting question for me. Good conversations with many of you talking about these, and we're going to continue to require a complete submission. So just in letting candidates know you need to submit everything or else it's going to get kicked back. If you're just missing one document, it's going to get kicked back. And now with the first condition coded document that a candidate submits receiving a $50 voucher, it takes a little bit of the sting out of it, but it still is pricey for candidates to make a simple error like that. But in taking a look at, step 2 plan, it is one of the most challenging steps of this piece of coming together, looking at data, coming up with, what is going to happen and then acting upon it. But overall, rubric scores have gone up, and I think we have a question in the chat, Reggie, about how do 2.3 and 2.4 compare to last year's data. Do you have that on hand?
I don't have that on hand. I'll take a look at how it
Okay.
compared to last year's data. Again, rubric 7 was the lower one, the lowest one last year that we made note, and I'm glad to see the movement. But I'll take a look at how 2.3 and 2.4 did last year. So give me a moment.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any comments that any of you all have right now when taking a look at cycle 2? Would anybody like to raise their hand and make a comment or ask any questions of the group?
Thank you.
Oh.
Someone put it in the chat.
Mhm.
Three was 2.2, and thank you.
Sure, Catherine.
Yeah,
Hi, I
and
just wanted
4
to
was 2.5.
thank you for that information. I was just curious because over the years, I know our program has really targeted rubric 2.7, just trying really to emphasize the importance of reflection and reflecting, not necessarily on the process of a community of practice, but rather on our leadership skills and the strengths that we've attained. So it's great to see that. And I'm interested to see that 2.4 dropped a little bit, but overall, just the scores are so encouraging.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. There was a question, I think from you, Catherine, about the $50 voucher. So if a candidate is condition coding on their first submission for a technical issue, they are receiving a $50 voucher to resubmit.
Mhm.
So if they are condition coding because they scripted, it's not available to them. If they get their unscorable because 2 submissions came in and they were just so alike that they were flagged for urgentality, they are not receiving a voucher in that space. But if it's a technical issue, then they do on their first resubmit receive a voucher, and that automatically goes to the candidate. And if you have a candidate, and I believe this policy started, was it in September or October of this past year?
Yeah, yes, it was in well, it started with the new version, so with version 9. So yeah.
So this is something we can communicate with our candidates. And is it part of the Pearson submission site that lets them know, or how is this communicated to
Yeah,
our candidates?
it's automatic. So if they are condition code, we have a list of condition codes, and they will automatically receive a voucher for their uh, if they get a technical condition code. So it's automatic to them if it's their first attempt and they received a technical. It's to help them fix the technical and resubmit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you have any individual questions about a candidate, about a condition code and voucher, please do email us at the CalAPA inbox. I can check in and see, because sometimes they may have had another submission and that's why they didn't receive a
Right.
voucher or such. We can always, and when you send us any kind of query, the candidate's name is very helpful. And then also, if you have an email address for them, but we can always look them up by having their name and what institution.
Great.
So. All right. Let me see here. Okay. Then we do have a question about mid-range submissions. We are hoping to get those out by the very end of next month for cycles 1, 2, and 3. We are actively working on moving those through to be able to get them out to the field. And so the what takes the time is videos and what can be shown and what not, what needs to be blurred and such. But we are actively working on mid-range submissions. And then I got a quick question about verbal commentary and written commentary, and that is something that has shifted for cycle 2 and cycle 3, so I'll go ahead and address that. The before candidates were providing annotations on their videos, so identifying a point in the clip and engaging in that narrative analysis, telling us why they did what they did, right? Because that's the intention of that, is to tell us the why. And so what a candidate now has the opportunity to do, instead of, identifying a point in the video and then typing in a text box, is they have a Word document where they would identify a point in a video and then explain why in a more narrative format without the technology pieces of the annotation. But the candidate does also have the opportunity to just record, and they would just answer the prompts via recording. Now, I don't typically suggest a candidate write out their response and then just record themselves. That's not necessarily what we're looking for when we're looking for a recorded commentary. But if you have a candidate that better expresses themselves orally than in writing, then that's an opportunity for them to show what they know in a different way. So what they do in written commentary should be what they do in video commentary, and what it is explaining what they, just briefly pointing to what they did and telling us the why. Because saying, just giving us a blow by blow at this time, and what they did, like, we can totally watch the video and know that. We need to understand why they made those facilitation moves, why they had this conversation with their volunteer teacher, why they did that, and that's the commentary. Okay. All right. I think we can go ahead and move on to cycle 3, and I know there's a couple of other questions we'll get back to.
Before we move to cycle 3, just to let you know the overall mean score for cycle 2. Last year, the overall mean score was 17.7. The candidates scored the overall mean score for cycle 2 in this group of data is 18.9. So it's moving up, which is great. We can move to cycle 3. Thank you. So in cycle 3, you can see that 3.1 and 3.3 and 3.7 are doing well. And really, all the rubrics are the candidates performing well across all the rubrics. The one to note, as you can see, is 2.5 or 3.5, which has scored a 2.5, and that's a concern. It's the low point for this particular cycle. Last year, it was the same one. It was 3.5, but the candidates were scoring 2.2. So it's moving in the right direction, but it's still not where we want it to be. I just wanted to point that out. And last year, rubrics 3.7 and 3.3 and 3.7 were performing at 2.9, and you can see they are doing much better. So all the rubrics across the board, the candidates performing well across the board on all the rubrics, even 3.5, it's moving in the right direction, but it just would need some more attention. Marissa.
Sure. So overall, like I said, cycle 3 had some really some good scores, and candidates are doing really well. And they're, just looking at that step 3 act, there's all so unfortunately, we don't have construct data to say
Right.
where what construct candidates necessarily did not do as well on that made them move from a 2 to a 3, but we do have this rubric data. But in looking at and I know there was a question about rubric 2.4, so we can talk about that one as well. But taking a look at rubric uh 3.5 in the cycle 3, this one is where the candidate, participates thoughtfully and productive collaborative conversation with the volunteer teacher, and they talk about professional growth, include resources, coach, clearly based on the CSTP, and that's what they do in their video. And then in their commentary, they consistently provide a narrative analysis of their ability to co-determine next steps. So there's a lot that's happening in that rubric, a lot that candidates are doing, and there's a lot of different reasons why a candidate may not necessarily be able to engage fully and meet the rubric construct, but it could be because they're a very new teacher or new to coaching someone. Um, Being able to come together and co-determine next steps for professional growth, citing CSTPs clearly, and then also engaging in that narrative analysis, where they have to talk about motivation, skills, and tactics. That's also could be a challenge when looking at this specific rubric. We did have a question in the chat about editing videos, and I did want to go back to it. Apologies. So the performance assessment does not require you to edit candidates to edit videos. There's no place where it says you must edit your videos. It's just an opportunity for someone to edit their video. And again, the purpose of the video edit is to potentially cut out extraneous happenings to ensure that what is being measured on a rubric is clearly demonstrated. And I think I've told you all the story about being in a meeting where an administrator here at the CTC, we were all working remote that day, and she had something happen in her house and had to step away for a few minutes and then come back. And we realized that things like that happen. And I've also had conversations with some of you that have said, my candidates don't want to, they would really like to include their principal in this conversation or a vice principal, but they can't because they can't guarantee that they will be able to sit for a 30-minute meeting without getting a phone call or being called away because we're on a school site. And so the purpose of this was to, if the candidate calls a meeting and they ask someone to participate and they get a phone call and have to step away for a minute, and everybody kind of takes a step back and say, oh, we'll wait for them to come back, that could be time that they would edit out of the video. The editing was not meant to get in the way of what they are showing. It was a way to cut out some of that time that was, in my mind, just Marissa talking here, was almost making candidates try to script because they wanted to, they said they only had 5 minutes and we have to get through these things. And so it doesn't look authentic when we're going on a checklist and we're going so fast. And so by allowing for people to have a more natural conversation, for allowing it to go and shift the way it was going to go, and then by allowing them to go back to that video and cut out things that didn't necessarily need to be there because they weren't being measured on rubrics, that was the intention behind allowing for video editing. But again, they don't need to video edit. It's not required. They can have continuous unedited video, or they can edit the videos. And so the one thing that we have seen as an unintended consequence was in cycle 2, and this is a concern that assessors have. They're not seeing a candidate facilitate a group because it's a candidate asking a question, then one person responding, cut. Next person responding, cut. Next person responding, cut. And then they ask another question. Then it's this person, then this person. They're not seeing them facilitate a group. They're seeing like interviews. And so that right there is not the intention of the video editing. And unfortunately, I mean, I'm not saying that a candidate has done this, but they could potentially meet with those 3 people separately and bring something together and make a meeting. And that's not the intention of the cycle. It's to really be able to collaborate and bring a group together and have a conversation. So as you are talking about video editing with candidates, the most important thing to say is it's not required. The purpose of it is to help you to truly demonstrate and not feel that crunch of time to be able to get through what needs to happen in a meeting. Because we are in a professional meeting. Many of us have been in these meetings, and there are things we have to do to build community, to be friendly, to be kind, to listen to other people. And sometimes people go off topic. You've ever been in a meeting with me, you're going to hear about all kinds of things that didn't have to happen, that didn't happen. But that's part of building community and building trust. But some of those things don't necessarily need to be in the video they submit, right? Because it's not part of the rubric, especially when they have to make a choice between one part of a meeting and another part of a meeting, or when they're working with their volunteer teacher. Sometimes when you're with a fantastic colleague, or the hour can go by so quickly, you're like, oh my goodness, the bell just rang, it's time to go. When you have those great conversations, and we want candidates to roll the camera the whole time and be able to capture what needs to be captured for the purposes of demonstrating their ability to facilitate either a volunteer teacher or a group. So I hope that addressed the question. I think it was Joanne that asked. Okay. Are there any other questions or comments or anything else that that is around video editing that you all would like to address before we move on? Our goal will be to put some of that narrative into like an informational box into these performance assessment guides for next academic year, so it will be more clear for candidates as well. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead.
Cycle three is performing out of all 3 cycles in this segment of data. They had the largest increase in comparison to last year. The overall cycle score last year was 18.6. Candidates are performing, at least in this segment of data, 20.7 for cycle 3. So there's a great increase in in how candidates are performing in cycle 3, as evidenced by their mean cycle score. All right, go to the next slide.
All right, so condition codes. So we have some high frequency condition codes, and you will have noticed that the list of condition codes has significantly shrunk down. And under the technical related condition codes and condition codes for staging and scripting are still in place. Content related condition codes, the vast majority of them have been shifted into rubrics. So if hopefully that will help to get more submissions scored, but making sure that they are still meeting the minimum requirements. Now, one minimum requirement of cycle one is that the candidates use data from a dashboard. So chronic absenteeism, one of those. But if we get a submission where a candidate talks about an equity issue for left-handed students in their school, that doesn't meet the minimum requirements of the submission, and so they would be assigned an A1 CalAPA submission requirements not met, and then we would send you an email. And I hope that you've been receiving emails from me when we do have some A1s that we need to send out. And I do my best to look on our ADS, but I also have just been when I see your program, I go on your websites and I take a look at who's who and try to send those emails out and to make sure that you're able to support those candidates. But at this time, cycle two does have the highest percentage of condition codes, and it's simply for incomplete submissions. The vast majority of submissions that I've seen that have received a condition code this past year, I mean, I can count on one hand really how many we've had that were staging, scripting, things of that nature. It's just candidates are not turning in the full submission. So anything to add to that, Reggie?
Yeah, so cycle two is still the cycle that has the highest number of condition codes. But the good news is that the number of condition codes that we're seeing, the number of originality things that we're seeing have decreased. So I'm very happy about that. So last year we had 9% received a condition code in C2 on their first attempt. We're down to 3% in this particular segment of data. So that's great news.
All right. There's a question in the chat, Reggie, about how to read those forms. They were tricky for me when I was a program coordinator.
Yeah,
Anything that you can help for folks
sure.
to be able to understand. I saw someone else have a suggestion there.
Sure. So the ASCII in the ed reports, the way to get it is what I do is I bring it into Excel. And so the way to do it without bringing it into notes is to download it and then open up Excel. And then Excel defaults to just opening up Excel files. So you have to change the menu thing to open up all files. And then you go into your download folder and you can see that ASCII file. But if it just says Excel files, when you try and look in your downloaded folder, you won't see it because Excel is just looking for Excel files. But if you put the menu to all files, it will find it and then it will import it directly into Excel. And at that moment, it's like nirvana. You will be able to see your file and your information, and you'll be able to do all the things in Excel that you're used to doing. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah, cool. Kimberly says to figured out and want to make sure. So, yeah, but that's the trick with the ASCII files. If you don't do that, then you're bringing it into notes, and notes makes it look absolutely horrible. So, but bring it into Excel, and the only way to bring it into Excel is to change the menu drop from just looking at Excel files to all files and bring it in straight there. Hope that helps.
Yeah, it was just determining between the cycles, and it did seem like there was consistency among the last three digits of that first code. So just wanted to confirm that.
Okay.
All right, I think we're ready to go to the next slide, which is the passing standard, which they have not changed and they will not change for next academic year. So we will be continuing these, and if there are updates to the CalAPA, then the passing standards will be revised at that time. But again, at this point, these are our passing standards, and they will continue to remain in that way for next year. All right. All right. The survey. I've talked about it. I'm looking forward to hearing your responses. We'll go ahead and drop that link in the chat. If you could, like I said, complete the survey by February 6th and pass it along to any other faculty, mentors, administrators that are on site that are supporting these candidates as they pursue their preliminary administrative credentials, it would be helpful. It's not necessarily for candidates, it's really faculty and mentor facing, coach facing. So if they could complete that, we would greatly appreciate that feedback. All right. So some upcoming events for performance assessment, and I'll turn it over to Patricia to talk about some things coming up.
All right, great. Thank you. So we'll have our summer coordinator meeting occurring on Wednesday, June 10th. I can't believe it's 2026 already. And that will be from 1 to 3 p.m. We'll be here on Zoom. And we'll have our Digging Deeper webinars. So we had one on January 15th, What You Do and Why, reflecting on practice. And the next one that will be upcoming will be March 12th from 1 to 2:30. Equity-focused teaching and leadership will be the topic. And then on April 23rd from 1 to 2:30, we'll have Embedding the CalAPA, CalTPA, and 26-27 planning. And once again, we'll be able to provide this is a PDF. It will be in the Google folder, so you'll have access to all the links as well. We have our Meredith Fellows Implementation Conference that's upcoming very soon, February 5th through the 6th, and that will also be held online. And so we'll have the link for you to register very shortly. It's free. I know a lot of things aren't free anymore, but this one is completely free. And it is for you all. It's for practitioners and coordinators and individuals in the field to come out. We'll have presentations by various individuals from different institutions of higher ed and different districts, and as well as county offices. And so we invite you to come out to learn with and from each other, and we'll discuss best practices as well.
All right,
Contact
so
information.
contact information. Again, here's that annual data system at ctc.ca.gov. If you go into that Google folder and you're finding that the information there is just not correct, please contact that email address. That team that manages the ADS system will help to make sure that the correct information is there. We want to make sure we have the correct and most up-to-date information, and you want to make sure that you're receiving emails. There is also a link to the CalAPA faculty policies and resources website. Once we do have those high mid-range submissions that we have been working on actively, we are actively working on getting those done. We will get those posted. We don't foresee any like massive changes to CalAPA for next year. So we will be updating rubric language, we will be updating templates, we will be clarifying items, we will be adding call out boxes in the guides to be able to clarify. But once we get a good submission example from this year, it should still be good for next year. So we won't do this again next year, waiting for something so drastically different. I think the biggest change from last year to this year was in cycle 2, but also shifting from the annotations to the commentary. Like that was another big change. But we don't foresee anything like that. No one's dropping a rubric, nothing like that. So once we get that information, it'll be on our pages as well. We can go ahead and go to the next slide. Again, links for the email lists. Anyone can sign up. You do sign yourself up for these email lists. I try not to spam you with too many different emails, but just sending out reminders and such of things coming up and links. If you are wanting to receive, sometimes you'll receive something 3 times instead of just once, but it's better to get it 3 times than not at all. So just make sure that you are on our list and pass it around to other folks in your programs that may want to also receive emails. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Office hours, the first and third Friday from 9 to 10. We do have just office hours for APA and for TPA at the same time. If you come in with an APA question, someone else is there with a TPA question, we can always go off to a breakout room or, whatever. And so that way we can get everybody's questions answered, but those are for faculty. Candidate office hours. We are doing candidate office hours for CalAPA today at 4:15 to 5 p.m. We're there to answer any questions that they may have. It's not necessarily a time to come and argue about a condition code, but it's absolutely a time to show up and say, hey, I wasn't so clear about this. Can you support me in this and ask me some, I want to get some questions answered. So that's absolutely there. And our monthly leadership PLCs, apologies. We had the December commission meeting, and then this January we had another meeting that conflicted, but our monthly leadership PLC will be resuming in February. And all of these links are on our website. Julie has worked so hard to clear up and reorganize our CTC performance assessment website, and she just dropped it into the chat. You can find all the links for office hours and for other events that are happening on a regular basis, Zoom links there. We will be publishing the links for the PLCs, and I was thinking that we would just probably go ahead and do that for the rest of the academic year, maybe post it on our website, because we have these PLCs, and I think they've been a really fruitful time for folks to come together and build community, ask questions, and just have a good conversation about implementing the Cal APA. But absolutely, we will have these. We will have those on our website. Do I'm just looking at the coordinator meeting invites. We typically do coordinator meetings biannually. We do a fall, a winter one, and then a summer one, and so we will continue that cadence to these coordinator meetings to be able to review data. We do have digging deepers that are typically done monthly, where folks can come and hear from one another or from our program, our PA team, around some data. Some of you that came to the digging deeper that we had last week got a little bit of a preview of some of this data that we shared today as we did that session. So be looking out for those. We can go to the next slide. Thank you again for your attendance. For past CASC questions, so anything about admitting a candidate, anything to do with accreditation, that past CASC email is the best spot for you. Anything to do with the performance assessment, cycle 1, 2, 3, anything to do with video edits, by all means, please share that email address with candidates as well. They are more than welcome to contact us at calapa@ctc.ca.gov. Our website, Julie did drop that in the chat, and we have gone through and updated it. I know that the commission's website can be a little cumbersome, and there is a lot of stuff on there. They actually are in the active process of updating the website to be able to launch something new either this spring or summer that will be more responsive to and have less old stuff on there that is no longer applicable. And for technical support, this is a great place to reach out. And if a lot of times, if a candidate is taking a Cal APA, they have a preliminary credential. Maybe they hadn't signed up for a Pearson account in many years, and then when they were going through, they did their Cal TPA or their RECA, and they were at a different institution. Their email address is attached to that registration. They no longer have access to that email. And so they need to contact Pearson support to be able to get logged in. That's a question that goes to CalAPA at pearson.com. So those questions there, and also if they may have received a condition code and they want more information, that is the good email address to reach them. And then the Pearson website, the CTC exams website, is where candidates will continue to register and submit their materials. And I did see a question in the chat about the disruption that happened in December, that where candidates were submitting and the system just kind of overloaded. And that was a very difficult and stressful time. And again, just to reiterate to candidates, there's a lot of people doing performance assessments, and there are some dates that candidates are submitting for APA, and then some candidates are submitting for TPA, and that is just a lot on the system. So if the submission deadline's a Thursday at midnight, tell the candidate your date is Tuesday to be able to get all those things done, and you save yourself a lot of anxiety and stress, because that submission deadline, that where the system got a little overwhelmed and shut down, and then people were sending emails at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, and then we're checking. We received over 300 emails in these inboxes from people that were on tight deadlines. And Pearson will always make it right. They will always make sure if it's a technical issue on their side to be able to support candidates. So let them know that. So that way they're not sending emails at 2 o'clock in the morning, but also let them know that they can save themselves a lot of anxiety by submitting on a Tuesday instead of a Thursday. And it just, I don't know if it's going to make much of it. It wouldn't make much of a difference, one day or another, but it would make a lot of difference for themselves personally. But that is the end of the materials that we have, and we wanted to make sure that we stayed on to answer any questions, or that we also could give you back the gift of some time if you don't have any questions for us. Go ahead and stop the recording.